Well, hello there folks, I hope you're doing well. In this video we're going to be talking about chapter 10.2, collecting data, bias, sensitivity, and method. So, the goal of this is to assess surveys, for bias and sensitivity and select appropriate survey methods. So, it starts off with the worst survey in the world, basically. GON and Rachel are looking at a survey about families in their community. The survey was delivered to each resident's mailbox, and it looks like this. So it says, oh, it's too long to even fit on the page. But please answer the following questions about your family. Return the survey in the prepaid envelope to your mailbox for collection. Family structure. How many people are in your family? What is the age? How many males? How many females? Do you have a traditional two-parent, single-parent mother, single-parent father, blended with step-parent and step-siblings? Other, describe, is anyone in your family adopted? Were all your family members born in Canada? What's your family's annual income? Do both parents work? What are their jobs? Do the children contribute to the household income? Do you own or rent? Does anyone in the family have a university education? What level of education do the parents have? What level of education is each of the children? Does your family attend church? Does your family use community recreational facilities such as the pool and skating rink? How does your family fill its leisure time? Does your family like to watch too much television? So, yeah, this is awful. This is full of biased questions, which is a question that's going to influence respondents in a particular way, like does your family like to watch too much television? Like, it's a biased question. People are going to say, no, or something like that. It's full of sensitive information stuff like, how much money do you make? Do you go to church? Are you a single parent? Are you full of step siblings? And all sorts of stuff. What is your age? Which occasionally they do ask for reasons. And it's... So these are the kinds of questions that invade people's privacy. These are the kinds of questions that might embarrass people. So one of the follow-up questions, it says, how could the survey be improved? The best thing to do with this survey is probably just to throw it in the garbage and start fresh. There's so little good in this survey. And so we have to be careful about that when making a survey. Let's do some examples now. First of all, writing unbiased questions. So how do we avoid unbiased questions? So a biased question, again, would be something like, do you agree that dogs are friendlier than cats? It doesn't sound like it's a biased question, maybe. But it's, when you say, do you agree, it's, you're influencing like, well, I think this way. What do you think? And people are more likely to respond with the already given response. So, a marketing agency wants to determine how Canadians spend their clothing dollars. Alexis wrote this question to determine how much is spent on imported clothing. What does your closet contain more of? Less expensive foreign-made clothes? High quality made in Canada clothes? So what is Alexis trying to obtain? And then rewrite the question to avoid bias and sensitivity issues. Sam says, Alexis wants to know if people spend more on locally made clothing or imported clothing. She also wants to determine information about clothing quality. So it's actually asking two things, whether it's foreign made or Canadian, and the quality / cost. So rewrite the question, do you spend more on made in Canada clothes than on foreign made clothes? The original question was biased. I reworded the question to remove references to less expensive and high quality so that it wouldn't influence responses. The information about quality could go in a separate question. So we have to be careful when writing questions to just make sure, first of all, that we're asking one question at a time. And second of all, that we're not influencing the answers by showing a preference. Like saying, oh, this is high quality, this is low quality. Do you buy cheap clothes or good clothes? Like you gotta be careful. The next example talks about finding or gathering data in different ways. To make valid conclusions and predictions, appropriate forms of data collection must be used. Questionnaires, interviews, oh my goodness, and experiment and observation are some of the ways that data can be collected. What would be the best way to find out about each of the following topics? do people prefer brand name or no brand name or no name brand soft drinks? So generic store brand or, Pepsi, Coke type stuff. Are students' marks affected by using a calculator on a math test? Is there a relationship between a person's age and gender and the number of telephone calls received? Larissa says, I would set up a blind taste test experiment to see if people could tell the difference between a name brand and a no-name brand. The classic Pepsi challenge. Blindfold them, give them a Pepsi, give them a Coke, see what they like better. So this avoids bias by disguising the brand of drinks. For the second one, I will interview students and ask them when they used a calculator and how their marks compared to their marks when they didn't. She says, I will use interviews so I can ask different questions depending on people's answers. So that's one advantage of the interview. You can have if they say this, I will ask this. If they say that, I will ask that. You can throw that in a survey as well, but it can be more difficult and more confusing for those who take the information. And so because of that, the information might be less valid. For C, I need to be able to give a questionnaire to a number of households with various ages and genders represented. To collect unbiased data, I need to ask a range of different types of households the same question. So you need old people, young people, people who come from different cultures, that kind of stuff, so that you have a better representation of the group of people that you're looking for, the population. Finally, creating a survey. Due to rising printing costs, the staff of a school newspaper is thinking about increasing the price from 50 cents to 75 cents for each issue. They'd like to know how this would affect the number of papers sold. To help the staff make a decision, create a set of unbiased and effective questions that are sensitive to respondents. Thomas says, here's the questions I would ask. How often do you read the weekly school newspaper? 4 times a month, 2 to 3 times a month, once a month, occasionally. This question determines how often people read the newspaper. Number 2. Rising printing costs mean that we need to raise the price to 75 cents. If we continue to publish weekly, are you willing to pay the new price, or would you prefer a monthly paper for $1.50? Ask the students to see ask the question to see if students would pay 75 cents weekly, or if we should publish the paper less often. So obviously, if it's $1.50, it's going to be a bigger paper, but it's only coming once a month. Finally, number 3. How often will you buy the paper if it is published weekly at 75 cents a copy? So ask the question to see if the newspaper will be read less often at the new price. This is asking a similar question to number 2. And so it's an iffy question, but it's Thomas has given his reason for putting it there. So either 4 times, 2 to 3, once a month occasionally, or never. I will never buy a 75-cent paper. So that's basically it for this chapter. The key ideas for this was when you're preparing to collect data, you got to ensure the questions are sensitive and bias controlled. So you don't ask things that'll embarrass people, and you don't ask things that are going to predispose people to answer a certain way. Select a method that's appropriate for the kind of data that you're collecting. Make sure that the respondents know who is collecting the data and for what purpose. Oddly enough, that didn't actually come up in any of the examples. But yes, we also need to know, they need to know how their information is being used. That's always important. When you create questions to collect data and analyze how the phrasing might affect the data collected. Ask yourselves the questions such as the following. If I ask these questions, will I get the information I need? So make sure you're actually asking what you want to ask. Am I making one response sound right and another wrong? Is the question respectful? If I walked up to a stranger and asked this question, would the person be upset? So that's it for 10.2. Hope this was clear, but if you have any questions, please do let me know. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will talk to you later.